Well, as always, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for being part of my journey. If you're new to the channel, then I sincerely hope that you will actually stay with us and hang around and at least like the content if you actually like it. Don't like it, of course, if you don't. I would appreciate it though. But anyway, I'm not going to go into the sales pitch. I want to try and keep these videos short. Now, if you're a newbie to the channel, you might not be aware that I have this dreadful habit of having notes when I do my videos, and then I go down the rabbit warren. I distract myself, and so the videos can become rather long. Now, what I do is, for those people that are in a hurry, is I put timestamps in the description so that you can jump to the areas that you desire. Now, just to be aware though, when I do the videos, as I say, I do this bit of a distraction every now and again. And sometimes, I might be talking about the Zodiac, but then I might flick off and actually say something about the crystal itself. So in between times, if you just stick to the timestamps, you may miss out on some of the literal thought gems or knowledge gems that I share with you, because I don't always contain them well, is where I'm going. But hello, I'm human, I'm constantly evolving, and I make mistakes. Now, before I get into it, obviously I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are. I'm just going to have a brief bleat about how hot it is here in Perth, Western Australia. It is now 9:30 a.m. and we are looking at 38 degrees Celsius. We're in the middle of a heat wave. So I've just put the air conditioner on to try and at least make it a bit comfortable for while I do these videos. And the other thing too is I've got my little Toby boy, my little doggy woggy, and he does tend to play with squeaky toys. So hopefully he's going to behave himself. Hopefully I'll be able to get through this content in a timely way. But please know, I'm not going to be offended if you jump from slide to slide. And also, I absolutely welcome you to put up your own tips, thoughts, questions, whatever. If you've got information to share, especially if you're a geologist or somebody that isn't, or even a gemologist, these are not my areas of expertise. I am a lay person when I talk about the mineral content and the formation, and that definitely is something that, I actually am thinking about studying it, to be honest. But anyway, moving on, I'm going down that rabbit warren already. So just to clarify before we get into it for the day, the bottom line is when I talk about bloodstone, I'm talking about the image on the right, which is the bloodstone that I'm familiar with. Its proper name is heliotrope, but it's also known as Indian bloodstone. The one on the left, that image, that also is called bloodstone, but it's African, and its proper name is setonite, and it's got a different chemical makeup, I believe, to bloodstone. Not a lot of difference, I might add, but certainly different when you look at it, because you can see here that the heliotrope, I'll call it heliotrope for now, actually has a lot of this really deep green in it, whereas the African bloodstone has this greyish kind of transparency to it a lot of the time. But anyway, yes, I wouldn't say that I have actually used bloodstone myself, but I'm very familiar with it because it seems to be a stock item here in Western Australia. Every shop or retailer that you go to actually has this heliotrope in it, and so therefore I've spoken to a lot of people that use it, and it was actually recommended to me many, many years ago as part of treating just so you know, hope you're not uncomfortable with this, as part of treating premenstruation symptoms, the syndrome and that kind of thing. Now, as it happens, I should have said on the other slide, I didn't actually buy it back then because it's not a crystal that I'm particularly drawn to personally for use. But I do believe that if I do stock up on crystals again and start selling them to my clients when they come by for services, I will definitely have bloodstone in the collection because I am familiar with its healing attributes. But anyway, going on to the links with the Zodiac, bloodstone is supposed to be linked with Aries and also Pisces, sun signs. But realistically, it doesn't matter what Zodiac or what sun sign you are. You could, if you're drawn to bloodstone or any crystal, then that's the one that you get. And the other thing too is you might have a health condition, say, that we're going to look at when we do the slides on the attributes, and you might decide that you actually like the colors of it, or you like the look, texture, or whatever. If you were able to get into a shop and hold it, you might decide that actually bloodstone feels right to treat the symptoms. So this is why the Zodiac links, I feel, are somewhat irrelevant, but I do mention them. So from a metaphysical perspective, bloodstone is considered to be an extremely powerful healer, especially of anything to do with the physical body. So fortunately, I would say up until more recent years, I've had quite good physical health, for the mainstream, which is probably why I wasn't drawn to bloodstone. But either way, it's supposed to be very beneficial for any diseases that are related to emotional stress. And we all know that stress and distress actually impact upon the body. There are physical conditions and diseases that we can get if we live a highly stressed environment, and at the very first instance, it's actually to do with the adrenals. So if you were a person that had problems with your adrenals or were living a very highly stressed environment, then ideally, if we focused on the metaphysical attributes, then you would wear bloodstone as part of protecting your body's function and health, the physical aspects, taking care of it. It's also supposed to assist with accessing your own inner guidance, and is said to be a link between the heart and what chakra? The heart and the base chakra. A lot of links with blood health. Okay, we're going to be talking about that more when we talk about the physical attributes, but it's also said to be a very powerful cleanser and detoxifier, and it's involved with strengthening not just your body. If we strengthen the mind and we build resistance there and resilience in the face of challenges, then our body is going to stay well, and we will be more open to taking care of our aura and the energetic well-being. So it supports spiritual growth and development. So as I said, I'm not a geologist, so this is where if you're an expert in this kind of field, your comments would be very helpful. But this is the information I managed to source on it when I was doing the videos, which is obviously its proper name is heliotrope. We do call it bloodstone because obviously those little drops and the red in it looks like blood. This particular bloodstone is more commonly known as Indian bloodstone. It's part of the quartz and jasper family, but sometimes it's also chalcedony. It is mostly opaque, right? Meaning that you could hold it up to the light and you can't see through it. But sometimes it does have translucency to it. So that can be challenging for us if we don't have a lot of experience when it comes to buying it. Now, as far as hardness goes, it's got a relative level of hardness. It's not too soft. If we look at it between 6 to 7, we're not going to be saying that this is the hardest crystal you can ever get, because 10 is the hardest crystal. But you can see it's got some durability with it. Now, as far as sourcing it goes, you can see here it's found throughout the world. So it's not rare. It's fairly commonplace. What else can I say? What I did learn when I was doing this is it's not always this green. Sometimes you can actually get it white, yellow, or blue. And I'm talking about the Indian one here, I believe. Now, my notes as well did mention that what we call the true Indian bloodstone is actually found in the Deccan traps of the country, shall we say. My experience, though, because I'm in Western Australia, and this is something I'm noticing as I do these videos, there's a lot of these crystals I look at, and it's, I can almost sort of feel myself going, oh yeah, really, because it's local here. And I think there's something about having local crystals that we must get this little thing around. It's like, oh yeah, cheap as chips, dime a dozen, you can find that on the ground. I mean, I don't want to give the impression that if you come to Western Australia that you will be able to just walk out your front door and find some bloodstone. But when you live in the remote areas, which I have, and on a lot of these mine sites, I've worked in the areas, and I've gone bush a lot, that's just been part of my life. You go to the creek beds and that kind of stuff, and quite often you find crystals. And back in the day when I was doing that kind of thing, I didn't even know about the metaphysical properties and that kind of thing. So these crystals become quite commonplace, and you know what it's like if you have something all the time that's easily accessible. It doesn't seem as glamorous, shall we say, as a crystal perhaps like seraphinite or charoite for me, which is found in Russia. And I can tell when you buy from the Russians a crystal that's local to their area, they actually sell it fairly cheaply as well, because to them it must be pretty boring. But anyway, moving on. Now, when it comes to buying tips, I'm just going to go straight into it and give you the routine stuff first, and then I'll talk about these images that I've got here. But the bottom line is, if you're going to buy any crystal online, then you would need to be asking for quality photographs, and more than one. You want to know how tall it is, how wide it is, how deep it is. You want to see it from different angles. You want to make sure that you're not buying a slice, okay? You want to get value for money. And as I said, bloodstone is not rare, so even throughout the world it should be fairly reasonably priced, because it's the rare gems that command these very high prices. So you want to know that to start with. You would want to know also, this is if you're buying online, where it's sourced, who's selling it, where the retailer is located. And I say this in all the videos, so you can skip over it if you want. But if you're buying, for example, a crystal that is sourced in, say, Indonesia, or sourced in Russia, because I mentioned Russia before, or even sourced in Madagascar, and then you're buying it out of the UK or out of the US or whatever, that means it may have gone through multiple hands before the retailer that you're buying it. So the prices are going to be more inflated. The other thing, actually, I haven't mentioned this in other videos, is make sure you check out the currency conversions. If you're buying overseas and planning to bring it to your home country, and then also check the freight costs. I will make mention again, if there's newbies on the channel, I bought a tumbled stone from the US. It was the first crystal I'd bought in a long, long time. It's very rare, and it's not sold here in Australia, so I knew I had to go overseas for it. But what ended up happening was I had forgotten all of these strategies, and I ended up paying almost $90. I think it was almost $100 for this tumbled stone. So it made it well overpriced, shall we say. So that's the first thing. The best thing, as far as I'm concerned, now that I'm looking at crystals again and doing these videos and trying to make myself current, is it's actually far better to go into a retailer, into a shop, and physically hold them, to feel them before you do your purchases. And there's something about holding them that, even if they've got flaws, it makes you more open to buying the specific crystal because it feels right to do. Now, okay, so that's just the general stuff. The other stuff to consider, and this is why I have these images here, is all of these are genuine bloodstone. So this is how you, through this slide, we can see that it really does come in different forms and shapes. If you look at the green hands, it would be very easy to assume that that is fake, okay, because it's got no red in it that we can actually see. However, I believe if you zoom in on this image when you're looking at it online through the retailer, because I got that off a retailer site, or was it a geo site? I can't remember. But that is, I am confident that that is a genuine bloodstone. But if you zoomed in, you would only see a small amount of the red. So it's primarily green, this particular one. So yeah, that's where that, if you're buying online, make sure you get some really good quality photographs. You wouldn't, I thought it was fake, just so you know. You would not, you want to, if you're going to buy bloodstone, you want to have a little bit of red on it. This is why I say that looked fake to me until I actually investigated the photograph a little bit more and was aware there is some red on it. It's just not hugely obvious in the photograph. Now, the carving, that I just think is pretty incredible, and it just shows that this particular bloodstone has got more of the red in it than the actual green. And it also shows durability there, you know, for rock sculptor, I think they're called, to be able to carve that rock. It's got to have a certain amount of hardness to it, because otherwise it's just going to crumble when they're making it. But either way, somebody's very, very clever with their hands. That image on the left that's got the slice on it, this is what I talk about when I say if you're buying, make sure you're not buying a slice. I really dislike the fact that these people that sell it will actually slice it down, because to me, I just find it to be wasteful, unless you are, as in this image here, this person is showing a slice. I'm putting a little bit of imagination into this. That must be a slice of the actual great big rock that the sphere was carved from. So, because it's a very unusual looking piece of bloodstone, you can see that it's got a lot of white in it. So they're showing its authenticity with this photograph. So these are the kind of things that you do actually want to see. Quite often I will take a look at photographs that have a polished crystal next to the rough crystal, because that's what the unpolished is, and I can see, yes, that the crystal that I'm buying comes from that slab or whatever, and that's a really good marketing strategy for a crystal retailer. I just need to have a cough, sorry. Now, I'm not sure about the bloodstone that's on the right, top right, as to whether or not that is West Australian, but it's definitely the genuine article as well. The reason why I put up the image of the dragon bloodstone is so that you can see there is a difference. Indian bloodstone does get confused apparently with dragon bloodstone at different times. But dragon bloodstone does not have that depth of green that the Indian bloodstone has. You can see here it's more of a serpentine colour, and in fact, if I do a video on dragon's bloodstone, I will be interested to find out if that green aspect is actually serpentine, and where it's found and sourced. Actually, that would be interesting too. Oh, okay. As far as a buying tip goes, it is unusual. I read one strategy where if you test the bloodstone for authenticity, this includes scratching it on a porcelain plate, and apparently it will leave a red streak. Now, that's just something I read, but I can tell you right now, I will never be treating my crystals like that. I'd rather just buy from a reputable seller, Oh, I just thought I would add, when I was doing my Googling and trying to get some information here on buying tips, this business that I was talking about, with it being very costly when it goes from location to location, if you buy it at the mine site and then it ends up somewhere else, they put on all these prices. Now, from my perspective, I've said to you, we have it in abundance here in Western Australia. It's cheap as chips. But what I saw was that in Cyprus, they were actually selling a tumbled stone of bloodstone for 64 euros. I almost fell on my face, because the idea, you need to remember, the person in Cyprus is probably going to add freight charges to that as well. That is the most expensive tumbled bloodstone I've ever heard of in my life. But who knows, they might have paid $50 for it, and they've got to make a profit, My apologies, I had to take a quick break there. Of course, sort out my little boy who is getting a bit excited here. Anyway, getting back to the video and the spiritual benefits of heliotrope, you can see here on this list, there's a number of them. It's good for a protection. You can use it as a talisman. It's said to work to unify the mind, body, and spirit, and it's considered to cleanse and purify all the chakras and break through any blockages. It's said to strengthen the connection to the divine if you were looking to enhance your psychic gifts and that kind of thing. When we talk about energy as well, we also have one of its attributes being the capacity to realign and balance out the aura. And that's something that we need to pay attention to on a regular basis anyway. And for those people that are feeling overwhelmed or scattered, it's said to be able to help you to regroup, to draw all of those scattered energies back within. It's also, if you're the sort of person that does the connections to the goddess, those kind of activities, and do rituals, it's recommended for that kind of use, and it's supposed to enhance the connection with the nature kingdom, or Mother Earth Gaia as some people call her, and the earth elementals. So there's a lot of things going on there. What else can I say about it? Just one of my notes here. I've said that more specifically because I think it's actually found in an area called Meekatharra, which is a little town in Western Australia, very remote area actually. And without speaking with any Aboriginals, hazarding a guess here, I would say that they would believe that it enhances the connection to what they call the dream time or the dream time spirit. I believe where bloodstone comes into its own is actually when it comes down to the physical attributes. But I've got to make sure that I really apply this disclaimer here because, for the simple reason, if you look at this list of benefits that it provides, allegedly, um, they seem to be a bit outlandish, and I've got no experience. I can't back this up myself, and I don't know that there's any, well, I would doubt that there's any medical evidence to support that bloodstone can actually cure any of these conditions. But at the end of the day, what I think it is about is that somewhere along the line, somebody with one of these conditions has felt perhaps the symptoms have been reduced or things have been more comfortable for them when they've been wearing bloodstone. So I guess the idea is that if you've got any of these conditions, consider getting a bloodstone tumbled like the pendant in the macrame. What are they called? I can't remember, necklaces or whatever. Consider something like that if you've got one of these conditions because it might help, okay? What I've mainly seen bloodstone recommended for is women's issues, anything related to the ovaries or menstruation, and that includes things like fertility, if people have got irregular cycles, if they've got period pain. Sorry guys, if you're watching this, put your fingers in your ears. If there is the muscle cramping and that kind of thing, and also to do with the blood flow, because if you think about it, blood and menstruation actually is cleansing. When people turn around and they get offended, and I've seen it more recently, why do some people think that it's dirty that women menstruate? Well, historically, the thought process behind it is that when women are menstruating, that is actually old blood that's no longer required. So it's a part of the purification process. It's a shedding of the lining of the womb because that is no longer needed. So it's old blood. So it's considered to be impure. It's being removed from the system to create a clear and pure state for pregnancy. So that's actually the rationale that goes behind it. So when it comes to bloodstone is credited to do anything with the blood, that purification, stabilizing blood flow. If there's problems with clotting, it will enhance, for a haemophiliac, actually, I should have put this on there as well. Somebody with haemophilia might benefit. And I put the big might in, okay, because we have that disclaimer up there. They might benefit from it. It might actually support clotting the blood when they actually have an injury, because it's supposed to support wound healing as well and recovery. What else can I say about this? I think my attitude to these kind of claims basically is just have an open mind. And I know I put in my notes here, I seem a little bit incredulous about the fact that a crystal can actually help to alleviate a lot of these symptoms, especially when it comes to women's menstruation. But I was reminded when I was doing the videos, and I didn't know this because historically I used to buy in person and I would just buy the crystals that felt right for me to buy. Or that came to me. I was gifted actually a garnet pendant, a beautiful garnet pendant, red garnet, and I used to wear almondine garnet bracelets a lot as well. And one of the healing attributes of garnet that I wasn't aware of is that it's supposed to support menopause, people that are going through menopause. If you've got problems, it's supposed to alleviate things like the hot flushes and that kind of thing. Anyway, where I'm going with this is, it was to my surprise when I was looking at the properties of garnet that I actually saw that that's one of its attributes. And I know lots of people are really surprised about this. I was myself. I actually went through menopause without knowing I was going through it. So that should tell you that I'm a pretty old girl here. And I had no indicators. I didn't know that I'd gone through menopause until it actually was completed. And in hindsight, if I was to give credit to the healing attributes of crystals, I have to ask the questions myself. Did the garnet play a role in this? This is why I say, if you've got menstruation issues or whatever, have an open mind. It might actually work. You might notice a difference. But whether it does or whether it doesn't for you, can you let us know if that's the case? Let us know how it works for you. I certainly, and I'm sure many other people would be very interested in that. And the same with if you've got any of these other conditions. It's supposed to be, I should mention as well, beneficial to the lungs because, of course, we're talking about heart chakra here as well. And so it's said to alleviate the symptoms of flus and cold. And if you've got lung congestion, decongestion issues, then it's supposed to support being able to, I guess, express those. So, bloodstone is also considered to be a really good emotional healer and thought healer. Okay, so this is why it's emotional and mind metaphysical benefits. It's believed to stabilize a person's emotional state and to bring balance to, the thought and the feelings. Now, when I read that, I interpret that as it helps us, you, me, if we're wearing it, to know when we're being oversensitive and overreactive. And this is part of us being able to successfully rationalize and process our feelings. So I said before, if you're feeling overwhelmed, feeling splintered or scattered, and as though everybody's making demands upon you, bloodstone is said to be able to assist with that to help you to regroup. This is this unification and connection of the heart and the mind and bringing harmony, if I can speak, into the internal space. Now, the other thing which I get a bit of a laugh about because I've got a sense of humour, one of its attributes are said to protect against overindulgence, shall we say. And when you think about the whole business of PMS and menopause and menstruation and that kind of stuff, most people are going to know, most women. In fact, I've got to be fair here, most men will know too, actually, when a woman is being a little bit disturbed because of her cycle. That's when we can become a little bit emotionally reactive. And I immediately thought of my sister, who every time was that time of the month for her, she would actually go and stock up on dried biscuits because she would get cravings for starch and for carbs during that time frame. Turns out she had a B12 deficiency, by the way, so she was looking to replace the B12. And anyway, so yes, she would absolutely overindulge when she was doing that kind of thing. Sometimes it worked for her, sometimes it didn't. One time she replaced it with prunes and paid the price, but such is life. Okay, so moving on. It's supposed to work to remediate that, shall we say, and to build emotional strength and resilience. If you are going through a lot of challenges, particularly in the family unit, I would say, and a lot of internal conflict, it's said to be able to help you work through that. And of course, when we're calm, emotionally calm, that enhances the decision making. Now, one thing I do find interesting is that it's supposed to be recommended for people with amnesia, to help restore their memory and their conscious state. Okay. What are the other things I've got here? To revitalize and rekindle love. And I'm not particularly comfortable about this one. I really would have no idea, but it's worth mentioning for people because it might benefit. Okay. Obviously, somewhere along the way, somebody that's been a victim of trauma, or see the incest word there, or incest, has obviously recommended the crystal as part of overcoming some of those symptoms. So that's worth knowing, I think. So when it comes to the chakras, and I'll try and be direct to the point here, it's very much going to be associated with anything to do with the base chakra, survival needs, and also the heart chakra, which is the focus on forgiveness of other people who have hurt us. That's probably where that trauma connection comes in, because quite often one of the blocks of the heart chakra is where we feel betrayed, that trust has been betrayed. And that is generally one of the causal factors for people with trauma. And undoubtedly those people that have survived inappropriate family relationships, for want of a better description. There is also the connection and association with the crown chakra, because we talk about rationalizing the emotions. So, I think it would be debatable. If you've got Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll go on to the next slide. So it goes without saying that if you were going to use bloodstone, or you want to include it into your, shall we say, crystal toolkit or whatever, you could always just get a tumbled stone. That is fine. And if you've got a tumbled stone, you can wear it in your pocket, you can pop it in your bra, um, you can put it in the net as a necklace. You can even put it under your pillow, things like that. It also, I put this image in here because I thought it shows you what a beautiful use of bloodstone that is. So that's as an ornament. But if you were to have that ornament in your house, which of course none of us will, this is a museum piece, you're going to pick up on the energy of the bloodstone anyway. For most of us, though, if we're lucky, we might be able to get a sphere or a tower of bloodstone even, or one of those amazing carvings, to have that as an ornamental piece, because it's still going to radiate the healing energy into the environment. Now, I put down it's useful for pendulums. If people use those kind of things, you can use your tumbles for crystal gridding. Now, I did in this instance, I've put down crystal elixirs. I don't use elixirs, but I'm aware that many people do. I might start doing it actually, because I find it quite interesting. But if I do, I probably, because I tend to be a bit overcautious, you can't use all crystals as an elixir. Not directly if you place it in the water, because if there's toxicity to it, it's going to leach into the water and you just wouldn't be wise to drink it. It could even be lethal, really. But there are ways of making crystal elixirs that don't include you dropping the crystal into the water, and I might have to do a video on that, because that would probably be the method that I would choose if I go that far. But where I'm going with this is, if you do choose to create your crystal elixirs, at this point in time, based on the research I conducted, there is no contraindications, meaning there's no toxicity that is known of that is associated with bloodstone. And just remember, scientific knowledge can change when they do further research. So this is one of the reasons why I probably wouldn't do the drop the crystal into the water to create elixirs. But anyway, if you can think of any other ways to use bloodstone, let me know. I'm sure other people would be interested too. So as always, I give you a couple of affirmations here that I knock up when I'm on the hop and doing these videos, just as an example of what you might be able to do if you're using bloodstone and meditating with it. These are the times you would probably use the affirmations, or actually when you're attuning and programming your crystal for use, especially if you're trying to heal a specific health condition. What was I going to say? So they really are just an idea, and just a reminder that affirmations are best when we make them ourselves. So as I say, this is an idea on how to make an affirmation. If you have affirmations that you think are more suitable, specifically associated actually for bloodstone or any other crystal, feel free to write them in the comments, because I'm sure I'm not going to be the only person to benefit from it. Okay, there's any number of ways of doing these things. Now, remembering a reading or any information is contextual. It's about the person that's sitting in front of you. And for those people that aren't aware, I have what I call my lucky dip. It's a bowl full of crystals that quite often when I'm delivering a service to a person, I'll say at some point in the reading, actually usually upon the close, if they've had a lot of challenges come up in the cards, I'll recommend they put their hand in and pull out a crystal. Now, if they pulled out bloodstone, from a general perspective, I would certainly be linking it to any physical health conditions. If it was a woman in front of me, I would be probably asking questions, because it's unlikely this would come up if you were doing a tarot reading. If they're having issues with their monthly cycles, whether they're young or old, or if there's some kind of hormonal issue going on. And sometimes, just so you know, that will be encouraging them to go to the doctors and actually get physical treatment for a condition that they're actually experiencing. Sometimes it's about fertility, if they're trying to get pregnant or whatever. And so I would see it as being an omen that they should just relax, okay, and allow the healing energy to come into them. Certainly when we're talking about reproduction or whatever, that once they, that old saying of what we resist persists. So if they're battling to fall pregnant, if they just relax about it, actually, there's two ways. I'll just tell you, if it was a pregnancy issue, and quite often, yeah, this is contextual, okay? So a woman might represent she's in her 30s, she's struggling to conceive, and she's got a few worries about it, and she doesn't know what to do. She's thinking, maybe I need to go to the doctors and get put on IVF or whatever. I would generally take that as a yes, go to the doctors, get the treatment that you need, you know what I mean? At least get on the waiting list and whatever, but start working with Bloodstone and just hand it over, because, quite often I actually feel when I'm looking at these kind of scenarios that there is actually a spirit, a baby waiting to be born, but the person's attachment to having this baby tends to block the receptivity, if that makes sense. But once they relax, then it all happens for them. Now, interesting little scenario there. One of my daughters was one like that, and I've seen this again and again, where they start the actual IVF program and then they start to relax and they don't need to actually go through the full cycle, shall we say. So yeah, my daughter, she started the process and then fell pregnant with my little granddaughter, who arrived all on her own. Actually, so yeah, another little disclosure there. One of the problems for my daughters was that she actually had, what do they call it? Ectopic pregnancy. So she lost one ovary because she had an ectopic pregnancy. So yeah, these are just examples of how I would interpret somebody picking up bloodstone. So I did tell you, actually, right at the beginning, that I can go down a tangent, I tend to waffle and I drop little pearls. And sometimes I lose my thread, which is exactly what I'm going to do now. What I should have told you on the previous slide, when I talked about the fact that my daughter only had one ovary and she started on the IVF, the preparation, as far as, because there's waiting lists and all of that here in Australia. So she was taking the first stages towards it, and then she fell pregnant with my granddaughter. Now, what had happened before, this is putting it into context with the spiritual message factor and how I would interpret somebody picking bloodstone out of my lucky dip, is I can generally pick up if there is a baby waiting to be born, just so you know. And that was the case with my daughter. But because I'm her mother, of course, it was like, you can't say that. It's just you're biased, you know. So I took her down to see my friend, who is a mentor, the guy that taught me a lot of stuff about crystals. And we asked, am I being biased? She says, I'm being biased. I believe she's going to have two. What he said was, I don't know that she's going to have two. He said, but she's definitely got one. He said, I can feel that there's one now. This is before she started the IVF, because she didn't believe us. Anyway, so bottom line is she did have one. She had my little granddaughter. I recall at the time saying that the second one was going to be a boy. I felt she had two. He said two's an option. All right. But anyway, she does have two. And the second one is probably more of a tomboy. They're both dainty little girls, I might add, but the second one, as you can imagine, is pretty full on. Anyway, going back to the video here and talking about crystal care, and how we would care for bloodstone. Look, it is not soft, but it is still open to damage. If you're going to wear it every single day and pop it in your bra and that kind of stuff, there is a risk that you'll drop it on the bathroom floor. I've done stuff like that. It might not break the first time you do it. I dropped a carnelian the other day, but it becomes more vulnerable the more drops that it has, so it can actually break and shatter. So when it comes to bloodstone, I would imagine it's the same thing. One of the biggest issues that I found, because I quite often buy crystals with the elastic in them, because they're easy to slide on and off, and they can start to deteriorate, the elastic, and the bracelets will start to get loose, and then we start banging the bracelets against things when we're working or moving. So this is one of the reasons. Actually, I should point out, I've put a note here, even when you're opening the car door, bang, clunk. It's only a little clunk, but if you do it often enough, it can actually break. Anyway, they will eventually break if you're using them all the time. So if you're going to wear them daily, it's probably better that you take them off if you're going to be doing any work, or if you're like me and you just forget and go and do it anyway, you're the sort of person who, much as me, is better off to have a pendant than bracelets. But either way, you're going to need to rest it, cleanse it, clear it energetically on a regular basis. I would probably, if you're going to go the pathway of really getting a little crystal collection, even if it's tumbles happening, get a selenite bowl or some selenite that you can rest it on, because it just saves so much time, actually. If you're into smudging and saging and that kind of stuff, then do that. But that means you're probably going to have to do it every night, okay, if you're wearing bloodstone daily. Otherwise, if you're just working with it, meditating with it intermittently or whatever, you can perhaps just cleanse it once a week. Maybe you want to do a monthly out in the moonlight exposure. Exposure to sunlight should be okay. When I have put mine out in the dawn, I don't recall any birds pinching them off the table, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. If your bloodstone is set in jewelry, you would avoid using hydro baths. Just use your tepid soapy water in a cup, soft toothbrush if you must, if it needs it. Let it soak for about 5 minutes, rinse it off, use a soft cloth to wipe it off, and it should be fine. When it comes to storing it, you would be encouraged to store it separately from other crystals to prevent it getting scratches, because being the 7, there's going to be crystals out there that are actually harder, that can actually damage a polished crystal, okay? So you want to try and keep the polished separate from those that are in the rough. Look, there is a caution here saying keep it away from direct sunlight. So I should put in that reminder there that yes, look, direct sunlight, the harsh Australian sunlight, will damage bloodstone if it's left out all the time. In this ambient sunlight under the grapevine, it's fine. What else? Well, this one's interesting, okay? If you do have it in a jewelry setting, it's recommended that you apply, if you're the sort of lady that likes to wear a lot of makeup, or, well, even a little bit actually, your moisturizer or whatever, there's the recommendation that you actually put all that stuff on before you put your pendant on or your jewelry, because there can be chemical reactions sometimes. And if you're going to go swimming in a chlorinated pool or whatever, take your pendant off. Okay, so just some suggestions. If you can add to it, as always, add your own comments. Thank you. Well, my friends, we have reached the end of the video for today, and I say thank you very much for being part of my journey. I'm going to love you, leave you now. Before I go, though, I'm just going to say thank God for air conditioners. And what was the other thank God for? There's so many thank gods. Anyway, have a blessed day, blessed week. I'll catch you on the next video. Oh, I remember what it was. It was thank God I have had my internet replaced, and it's now faster because it's so much easier to do recording, and then the downloading and uploading saves so much time for me. But anyway, in the meantime, take care. I'm going to catch you on the next videos. Bye-bye for now. Love you.